Everyone's kerfuffling.
Hello everybody and welcome here today for one of our fantastic 3 men and a Proptech baby overviews. Delighted to have my colleagues, my compadres, Richard Durant, hello.
Good morning.
Paul Morgan.
Good morning.
Hello there, right, and we've got a wonderful freeze-framed Mark Bevan waiting to show us some quite exciting integration between the guys at GOTO, who have the concierge service, surveys, conveyancing, auctions, and they are one of the first companies out of the blocks with the Repit Foundations integration. So we're watching this video here today first, like all of you, and Mark's going to be just giving us an actual overview of how that works, a bit of background about it, and then especially useful for Repit clients, showing how much money you can actually earn from some of these subsidiary services, and some of the figures are truly incredible. So if it's all right with you guys, any questions straight off, or should we just kick him off and jump in? Just let me know as usual when you want me to stop.
Perfect.
Good stuff.
I think Mark should have worn a suit.
I should have worn a suit. I'm here wearing a Cowboy Car hoodie, so I'm not going to start criticising. Anyway, let's save the serious questions, Paul. Come on, think we're a professional organisation. Okay, here you go.
Hey guys, how you doing? Just want to kind of give you a bit of background on a couple of things that we're doing and what's working well with Repit clients. I think this could really be something massive for the Repit clients, especially with the amount of kind of knowledge that I've got, especially with Repit and our guys within the office that can make the calls on behalf of the clients. We're working with a couple of firms at the moment, around 7 Repit clients at the moment. However, every conversation we have to have with clients seems to be better and better, and there's more inkling to go down the secondment route. So secondment is basically being, we basically give a client a member of staff, and it's basically like outsourcing. So we second a member of staff who basically works on their business, which allows us to then dial out from a local telephone number. We'd have an email address set up with the firm as well, and we'd use the Repit system to connect in and basically call upon the agreed timeframes and trigger points. So ultimately we need kind of meat on the bone. So things like surveys, removals, EPCs, floor plans don't really kind of bring much to the party for us. We don't really make much money, and to be honest, neither does the client. So we would need something bigger to really warrant putting someone within their business. That person is based in Oxford in our head office. His name's Luke at the moment, and he spends a couple of hours a day sifting through Repit reports and making sure that the data is up to scratch and we've spoken to the right people. We use various reports, which I'll cover off in a minute.
Simon, can I just stop
and
that
to be
for
honest,
a moment?
Yeah.
If I've understood Mark correctly, based on volume and based on some higher value products, they're essentially lending you a member of staff to ring out and pick up that stuff, which, my experience from agency is that you tend to have a focus. Now that focus might be on sales and then FS or conveyancing,
yeah,
and rightly so, because that's the big earners. But what happens is loads of stuff gets missed, and all of that small stuff, makes a bigger number. And especially in a busy market like you are at the moment, because the money's coming in, because there's lots of sales, lots of exchanges, lots and lots tends to slip through the net. And if they've got somebody whose job is focused on the smaller stuff, I imagine it makes a big financial difference.
I think that's exactly right. From my understanding, I haven't seen the video, but I have spoken to Mark about it. And what they got very frustrated about was they could see in their benchmarking stats just what it was potential without too much, difficulty by just applying the focus. But what they could never seem to match up was with all of the different subsidiary services, you know, that raising the quality level to the top for pretty much all of those. And this is their way of ensuring that it does have that 100%. So just as you said there, Rich, ensuring that no opportunity is missed. And it is simple as that, really, because that's their job.
Because in the nicest possible way, and I do accept that it's important, but if I'm a negotiator in a busy office and I've agreed the sale and I've talked about conveyancing and financial services, I would much rather be on to the next one trying to sell the next house than earn 15 quid off of 15 quid off of removals or survey or something. So I'm not going to do it.
And doesn't it also stop that slightly bipolar thing that management do as well? This month's focus is conveyancing. No, this month's is going to be financial services. And you're bouncing around left, right and centre, aren't you? Depends on which the particular focus of the business is.
Yeah, and I imagine, you know, A, for revenue purposes, financial services and conveyancing, but also to get your deals through at the moment. If you're in control of a finance, a mortgage, and you're in control of a conveyancing to a degree, you've got more chance of getting that sale exchanged. You know, if you're in charge of a conveyancing and a survey and not FS and removals and survey, not conveyancing and FS, it makes no odds.
Yeah, cool.
Also to add, there's a time to ask those certain questions, isn't there? So, for example, you wouldn't necessarily want to arrange the removal organisation at the time of accepting an offer. These guys, you know, with the volume of data that they've got across multiple different companies, will know the right time to ring up to say, hey, can we help organise your removal firm? So I think there's an advantage with passing that work to the GOTO group because the conversion rate should go up.
Yeah. And as we've seen in almost every field, isn't it? You don't need massive increases in these, you know, in those cumulative conversion ratios, do you, to start earning some really serious fees?
That's right. That's right. We saw that organisation I used to work at.
Yeah. Okay, good stuff. Let's play a bit more.
As you know, the agent can pick and choose what they want to use. So it could well be things like auctions, conveyancing, mortgages, removals and surveys. You know, conveyancing and mortgages we earn quite well off, and well, even auctions as well. So those are, you know, key touch points that we need really with the client to make it worthwhile from our side of things. But safe to say it's going down really well, and safe to say when you bring new clients on, what you tend to find is that they start really well month one and month two, and then they kind of dip off in terms of their referrals. Either they're just not focused, their director isn't pushing them, but we always see, you know, that drop, and then that's down to kind of us to pick that back up. Whereas, you know, if we were doing the work for them, you know, ultimately you should see quite a good level of referrals from our side. So we don't charge for it currently. It's free of charge. They get 100% of the commission. Whether that's going to change in the future, I think it should. You know, whether we take something like 20% of the income that we pay to them, just as a, you know, ultimately we're paying for a salary, we're paying for the phone calls and so on and so forth. But at the moment it's free of charge, and we're having some really good conversations with rather large clients to repeat, you know, set up the power report, set up the power organizer, and it's just a piece of cake for everyone to utilize. So I'm just going to share my screen and just give you a bit of an overview. This is the demo system of Repeat, but so hopefully love Teams. So ultimately, so Luke will be set up within our office, and he'd have a local phone number of their office and an email address set up. So basically he's in the office at the right trigger points. So I am using an example of a client that wants to use us for auctions, surveys, mortgages, conveyancing, and removals. So that's pretty kind of fluent on our side. We've got the right guys. We've got Luke, who's an ex-agent, and he knows how to sell these things, and he's an expert from our side as well. So I've set up the power reports within here, and you can see obviously the on-market properties that have been on the market 12 weeks or longer, and they're still not sold. So you know, there's a lot of data to go in here. So Luke will be right clicking, going through all these properties. And what probably Luke would do is he'd export this list and send it to the office and let them have a glance at, you know, who potentially he shouldn't communicate to. So we'd probably be going up here, group by office, and then right click on the data, export to an Excel. That would obviously bring up the Excel form. He'd fire that over to the office, and then they would give him an inkling if he doesn't need to speak to anyone. So when he's going through, if he is referring, he's adding notes into the system. So he's probably going up here and adding a journal entry and saying, I don't know. Or it could well be that he's referred. And if he has referred, what he'd then do is he'd log into our system, type in the information, refer it, because he can't get involved with the referral. So another member of our team actually needs to do that. And that's just a separation that needs to be from our side and the client side. So Luke will refer it. The client will be contacted by another member of staff. But also what we're able to do on that side of things is then report on all Luke's conversations. So again, using the power reports within the system, on market properties that have been on the market 12 weeks and not sold, you could well have new reports in there that say not sold but have been spoken to, or not sold that haven't been spoken to. And it allows Luke to sift out what he has and what he hasn't dealt with, rather than just keeping spreadsheets everywhere.
So I'm just stopping it there. I mean, he's jumped around there very, very quickly, because obviously Mark knows the repeat system. But what you're witnessing here, and it's fair to say, repeat still isn't, RPS still isn't the prettiest one, but you are seeing a whole host of different customization options in here. That ability to have that fantastic widget, you know, completely bespoke on a not just on somebody in a company's on a company basis, but down to an individual person's role is fantastically powerful. And as he goes through, what you're seeing there, for again, my still belief with RPS is the way it portrays lots of relevant information at the same time, and being able to sift through that information. You saw him click around a couple of times to use really powerful filters. It is why this is still such a workhorse system for some of the very best agents in the business. You guys haven't used RPS yourselves. I know you've looked around it. How when you're looking at it as almost as the first time again for a while, how does it come across to you?
I think it's really good. Where I think it works and would really need to work on here is every agent's going to have their process. So taking, you know, on market offers over 12 weeks not sold, they're going to have a process, and whether that's, you know, contact at 2 weeks within that period where they can cancel their agreement, they're going to have a period for prospecting. And by creating reports at that moment, go to contact them makes it easy and less confusing. Because what you don't want is, if you've got somebody in a touting process, you're building up your relationship, and then somebody calls you, you know, with your agency hat on as if they're sat in your agency, and doesn't talk about everything you've just been spoken to, it causes issues. Whereas if you can segment it into who they should be calling and when, with a, you know, script of what they're talking about, fits really well for agents.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is going to be about the setup.
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, you'd have, sorry, Richard, go on.
It's not a plug and play. The agents need to sit down with GOTO and say, this is what you call, this is at the moment you call them. If this says yes, you don't. And if this says no, you do, whatever it may be. Yeah,
you need to have filters like that, you know, so particularly GDPR, you know, you've got your opt-outs and things like that, for third-party opt-outs. And then on top of that, there's the agent will have their own process, you know, call 3 days after registration, call 5 days after listing, call 7 days after, you know, public listing, things like that. So there'll be GOTO's input and the agent's input to come up with the quick way for GOTO Group to make that list of people to call.
And this is where their experience with having so many large agents and agents that have gone down the client services department route. I know both of your previous businesses obviously did that particularly well. You know, it lends itself to that kind of, okay, well, we're going to have these people farming that bit of data. As you said, Rich, you need to have that process in place so that it's very clear who's doing what. Yeah, again, the secret source of Reapit for some time has been Power Reports. That ability to create a report around what you're trying, the information you're trying to filter, and then turn that into useful widgets like this, just to reiterate, is very strong. Okay,
really
shall I
good.
press play?
Yep.
So Luke will speak to them and he'd, you know, have a conversation with the vendor just in regards to an auction, whether they consider it. Some people don't. Some people still think it's, you know, under the hammer, under the homes under the hammer job. But ultimately, auctions is the modern way of selling, and it's 10 times as secure and double as quick. So, you know, they're going to get paid. If it completes today, they'll get paid next month. And the completion times are a heck of a lot quicker as well. So, and obviously the buyer puts down a deposit, so it's going to be, you know, near enough, you know, 6% of auction properties fall through. So, you know, it's very good to try and make your pipeline more secure. Whereas at the moment in private treaty, it's very much, you know, monopoly money, and you're just kind of wishing it's going to complete towards the end of it. So that's the kind of thing that we do for auctions. You've then got obviously no viewings in 2 months, whether the vendor, you know, it could well be that the vendor situation is it's a vacant property, or it's a probate, or they've got financial distress, and you know, they need the security of a sale from auction. So that, again, those would be really good ones to go through. We then get things like surveys and removals, and these are triggered, but obviously upon a kind of offer acceptance. So again, Luke would go in through all the offers that accepted, speak to the buyers. Do they want a survey? Do they want a quote for removals? Where they're moving to, and deal with it from then on. But we've also got the fall throughs as well. So fall throughs are very good for auction. In fact, this week we've sold 3 properties via auction where they fell through this month. So again, we're seeing a lot of kind of financial difficulties with clients, and where they do want that security of auction. Kind of gives you a bit of a flavour of what we do. What we do is we then follow up either daily or every other day to the client, and advise them of what has been referred. Now, in terms of kind of incomes, this is, you know, where sometimes it just wins it, and it wins a deal. If the client is kind of thinking, should I, shouldn't I? This is where we bring our calculator out, and I'll probably just need to change my screen. So to give you an idea, this is just you know, an office that has 50 sales a month. And we're working on, you know, just 5 auction properties being sold. So the minimum they'd earn is 2.5 grand. So by selling 5 auction properties a month, they would earn obviously 2.5 grand there. We've then got conveyancing. So I'm going on 25% conversion ratio. So if they're, you know, out of the 50 sales, if they would refer all 50, we normally convert around 25%. On some of them, it's a lot higher. And I think when we go down the secondment route, because we're having that phone call with the buyer and the vendor, I think we're going to be able to do a lot better, but just kind of a small percentage now. So we've got 13 in here, and they'd earn £250 from it. We've then got mortgages. So again, 13 mortgages. They'd earn £275 per mortgage lead. Then you've got the likes of removals. So removals and surveys are 2 untapped income opportunities. Those are the easy wins. You know, any client should be using us for that. But the big wins are the mortgages, the conveyancing, and especially auction. So we've got 13 removals, 12 surveys. I'll just calculate it at the bottom, and you've got a nice little earning calculator that. So £250,000 a year by allowing us to do the referring. But hopefully, you know, we'd see more numbers in terms of conveyancing, mortgages, removals, and surveys. So, you know, yesterday we had a call with an agent who does 150 sales a month. Currently, their staff deal with all the referrals. They've got a contact center that deals with some of it as well. It's all very up in the air. But, you know, we were looking at earnings of around 650 grand a year for that, and they don't need to put, you know, anything into that. We just deal with it. They ultimately use Reapit as well. So it's pretty simplistic from our side of things. But take a look at the video, see what you think. Obviously, the Reapit power reports can be amended. I mean, those are just some of the ones that we're using right now, but I didn't want to show you the client's data.
Do you want to pause it there?
But those are, you know.
Okay, so I'm looking at all those numbers, my agency head on, thinking, are those numbers realistic?
Yeah.
And 25% conversion on conveyancing intuitively feels low to me. You know, I'd put that more at 33%. So
I think that also depends on what you deem as a conversion, doesn't it? Because ultimately, if you've got one sale, more often than not, you've got 4 opportunities.
Yeah.
Because that's the vendor's sale and onward purchase, if there is one, which is 2 cases, and the same with a buyer. You know, their purchase and their related sale. So if we're saying 25% as a case, it's ridiculously low. If we're saying 25% in terms of people who sign up, I guess it's fair-ish.
Yeah, but whichever way you rate that 250 quid times 13 is probably way too low for this financial calculator.
And he did say he was trying to be conservative as well. He just,
yeah. But then on the flip side, I feel the auctions is quite high. Mark gave the example, this was a 50 sales a month agency. So that's 10% of his sales going through auction. That feels high. Now, I accept that you will have withdrawals, a percentage of stock will withdraw, and that will be able to get some of that into auction. But it won't be 5 a month. So so you know, the auction number feels high to me. The conveyancing number feels low to me. The mortgage number feels low to me. The removals number I don't actually have a feel for. And the surveys feels a bit high. So I guess if I took a gut feeling on that, I'd probably say it'd be more like 200 grand a year than 250. But 200 grand a year still resonates with Mark's point about, you know, this is 200 grand a year for passing on a bit of data and letting Mark do a load of phone calls.
That's
such easy money, yeah.
It depends, doesn't it? What he said before is, I'm assuming if they are putting in all of these big ticket items, that they then qualify for that secondment process. Because if you can get somebody seconded for you, as he said at the beginning, we didn't touch on that, did we? He said, look, at the moment they're including this absolutely free of charge while they're getting out there. I would be getting people to snap the GOTO's hands off, wouldn't you, to try and see if this could work? Because what do you have to lose on this at the moment?
Absolutely.
Well, and Paul, your experience may be different. I've never worked or run a business which was very good at passing removals and surveys, because actually it was just something you didn't do. Where'd you pick it up in the process? It's probably at the point of low touch. And who do you trust? You recommend somebody. It just never happened. Whereas if you're doing, you know, 100 sales a month, 500 sales a month over the course of a year, for not changing your process, it adds some decent revenue. You know, that might just be a bar bill for a Christmas do, but it adds additional revenue.
Yeah. I think the problem with surveys often is that you don't want to jeopardize the sale, do you? So agents are almost reluctant to offer the surveys there. You know, there's probably more money if you're doing a good volume of business on mortgages. You might be able to leverage that mortgage volume in order to get surveys for competitor stock mortgages and generate income that way, rather than doing surveys on your own sales. Removals, I don't feel for. The committed buyer one's really interesting on there, and Mark's not even mentioned that. The committed buyer is the one where the vendor does some of the legwork for the conveyancing up front, and then effectively agrees a bit of a deadline on offers.
Yeah.
And so it's quite useful at the moment, you know, with the stamp duty threshold. And then what happens is when a buyer comes along, the buyer has to make it's called a deposit fee. It's actually a fee. It's not a deposit. It doesn't come off the price of the property, but it shows an intent, a commitment from the buyer to buy that property, and therefore it totally reduces the fall through rates, and pushes through properties quicker than the normal conveyancing process, because a lot of the legwork's done up front. And there's quite good commissions on there as well. So that's an alternative to auctions. If agency who's watching this feels that 5 auctions a year is so 5 auctions a month is probably too high. I think between auctions and committed buyer, an agency with 50 sales a month should be able to achieve 5 of both.
The other thing is we are just hitting the cliff edge, aren't we, in terms of the stamp duty? So I don't know if it's even too soon to get on there. But if you had auctions in your kit bag now, I know David Mintz, our colleague, has been focusing on that as one of the only ways to get things through. So, and for me as well, there's a second point here, is if you look at all of those down the left-hand side, if I'm honest, one of the things that I've always been quite frustrated at with GOTO is that they don't have more clients using them for the full concierge service. So rather than almost feeling apologetic that you're trying to sell these subsidiary ones, I love the idea of being literally, look, we've got a GOTO concierge. We're going to help you through that whole process, and presenting it as a genuine service. For me, I know that I'd be all over that, and I don't think I'm unique in a demographic in wanting to have that hand holding.
I completely agree. They, as I mentioned earlier, they'll just get missed. The low value stuff get missed. So not only you're missing out on a revenue opportunity, but also you're not offering that to a client who may need it and may therefore go somewhere else.
Yeah,
it's part of it. It becomes part, or it could become part of a valuation pitch.
Yeah. Oh, that's absolutely true. Cool. Well, I think let's just finish him off, because I think he's only got another 20 seconds, and then we'll just do a full review just at the end. Let's just play the end.
If clients are wanting to boost their income, and allow vendors, choice on different types of selling options, auctions is the way to go down. But yeah, I think it'd be great to have a kind of a webinar based on improving future earnings. But cheers, mate.
Okay, so just 2 things here then. If we go back to if we look at what Mark's trying to offer there, he hasn't vocalized it, but what he has said to me separately is, because of his huge amount of knowledge around the REPIT system, he literally has the ability to do the customization in terms of creating those power reports. Any REPIT clients that are out there that are interested, Mark will happily sit with you and actually demonstrate, and can actually set these up for you yourselves, tapping into his knowledge base to be able to get the most out of it. As you guys have both highlighted there, that being very important, that this isn't kind of just a one size fits all. You need to get an understanding for the business itself, isn't it? So yes, of course it's in Mark's interest there, but it's not like they're not going to be making money off the back of this if they get it working. That's the bit I like in it. They've got skin in the game, haven't they, to make this work? Because it's a massive investment. If they're going to go down that secondment route, they have to make this work, don't they?
And as an agent, you've probably got a little bit more leverage, because if you were passing, conveyancing over here, FS over here, removals over here, and the service level drops on a removal company, they're not as going to be tied in, because it's just a small, here's our removals. If you're passing everything to GOTO, the service level will increase, because you have more leverage. Because if they don't deliver on removals or surveys or one function, they risk losing all of that business.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, any last views?
I like it. I like the idea of outsourcing a lot of that external revenue generation, or third-party revenue generation. I think one thing an agent will need to think about, though, is the current push for transparency on referral fees. So we might need to change your agency agreement to include, I mentioned that you're going to earn referral fees from these third-party services. It's not a big deal. I'm pretty sure Mark can help with it, but it is, the direction of travel, isn't it, at the moment, in terms of legislation.
Gives you an opportunity there, though, Paul, as well, to get it all out at once, rather than so you can have a single paying. We make this for mortgages, we make that from there, and as long as I said, the issue, from my own point, is I've never minded, you know, an organisation making it. It's all about the fairness, isn't it? When every time these things blow up, it's because there's been some punitive price gouging fee that has been taken, and that's just, you know, that's always up to the business themselves to choose what they're going to do, what they deem fair.
Yeah, it's just transparency, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that's the only thing that wasn't mentioned that, you know, probably I would want to get across. But other than that, I think it's a great idea. You know, whereas we spend so much time, you know, managing the staff across so many different metrics to make sure all metrics are super high. Whereas with a service like this, you know, you can just set and forget. You know, they do all the hard work. They call at the right time. You know, the conversation then really with Mark becomes, I want you to deal with all these, you know, referral opportunities for me. But I want you to do it at a time that's not going to be inconvenient for my staff. You know, I don't want to jeopardize an MA. I don't want to jeopardize an offer or anything like that. So let's just agree the points at which you're going to call based on GOTO's experience of when is the best time to call, and then sign the agreement and go for it.
And this is unique in the marketplace at the moment, isn't it? I know secondment isn't per se, but secondment around just one element like financial services has been around for a while, but nothing that allows you to take control of your whole referrals process.
I don't recall seeing it.
No.
Yeah, I can't think of one that does them all.
Seeing it, and I think it's more important now than most people realise, because I haven't got a crystal ball, but transaction levels remain fairly stable at about 1.2 million every year for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's seen a spike. And my opinion is that isn't a load of people who had no intention of moving over the next 18 months going, oh, stamp duty holiday, let's move. I think it's just people moving that forward. And as such, we're going to hit a period where there's going to be less volume, less transactions, and agents have a choice. They go for market share, which always comes down to dropping fees, because that's what happens when there's less volume. Or you do less transactions, but you increase your transactional fee, and you've got to do one of the two. It'd be great to do both, but ultimately it tends to become a bit of a fight on market share or transactional fee. And by having this plugged in, there's no additional staff cost to pick up the slack, but you should earn more revenue per transaction.
And just to put our own little plug in there as well, of course, if you are interested in those, in making more on those angles, do talk to us, because we offer consultative advice on that basis as well, don't we? So you can get a double whammy. You can get Mark Bevan and us lot as well. So if you are interested, in all honesty, we're doing some really exciting stuff with other agents just on that basis, because as you said, Rich, as the size of the pie on the table gets smaller, the table manners need to change, don't they?
Indeed.
Good stuff. Okay, guys, thank you once again for one of those. Hope you've enjoyed this today, everybody. If you do have any interest in it, obviously you can reach out to Mark Bevan, but drop us a line and we'll happily introduce you over to them and take advantage of this while you can. It would be my advice. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Right, cheers. Bye-bye.
Everyone's kerfuffling.